Folks, good morning, good afternoon. You are very welcome to Bandido Talks. We are back for another special guest interview episode. We are joined by none other than Angela Mohan. It is a pleasure to have Angela here on Bandido Talks. Angela, how are you keeping?
Jesus, Matt, I'm doing fantastic, and thank you for having me this morning. I'm very excited to just talk about what I do.
Very good. Awesome. I'm really looking forward to this one. Now, we had talked about off camera. There are many different directions we could take this discussion. And I think that's what's so interesting about what it is that you do. So we're going to perhaps give a little introduction to the whole thing. And then perhaps we're going to have multiple little episodes where we get into the specific nuances of each different, let's just say, section or grouping of teachings for whatever it is that you're going to be bringing to the table here. So really excited with this one. Now, of course, let our audience not be deceived, Angela. You do, of course, have the Irish accent, but inform our audience, where are you actually based currently?
I'm based outside of Philadelphia, in a little village called Broomall, PA. I've been here, I didn't move here. I came here one summer in 1982 with my sister and one of my cousins. And I got involved in the Irish community, and there was games going on that weekend, Gaelic, camogie, and they asked me, did I play? I said yes, and I was hooked. And here I am, 2025.
My goodness me. And give us a little insight. What is it like out in that neck of the woods? I mean, try and do a little compare and contrast with Ireland and what it is actually like out there, because it seems such a, certainly to the old Bandido, such a foreign experience to be in the land of the United States of America for so long. So give us a little compare and contrast.
Well, things have changed from 1982. Things have changed a lot. But I guess for me, it was a different environment coming from, I guess when I left home, it was in the Troubles. And it was just a different world, the sun was shining. I loved the sun. The sun was shining 24/7. It was freedom, a lot of freedom, meeting new people, just a different adventure from the little village of the Brantry that I grew up in. And life back then was different because of the Troubles, And then as time went on and, the Donnelly visa came out, of course I grabbed it. We didn't have much money and stuff. So we went through Catholic Social Services, a great Irish organization that helped us. And then eventually got dual citizenship, played the camogie and the football for years. Actually, I played till I was 42 because I could, but at 42 then my body was broke. And I helped form a new team with some of my buddies here, and we went on to win a few North American championships. And then I took up the wonderful game of golf. I'm addicted, and I just love the sunshine. I could live in the sunshine all year round.
Very good. Excellent. And, now that we've got a little bit of we've sort of situated ourselves with respect to where it is that you're based, but of course we get some of this background, but let's try to give a little brief introduction, let's say, as to who is Angela Mohan? What is it that now, in 2025, Angela Mohan is doing with her time?
Well, here I am in 2025. I graduated from the Grey Institute. I went back to school in 2016. Why did I explore? I was in the field of personal training, and I went through the National Personal Training Institute here in Philadelphia. But my body was broke, as I said. I was, at that time, hopping from a shoulder doctor till a hip doctor till a foot doctor. Then I wasn't feeling good. Everything that I ate bothered me. So I would say I was a bit of a mess. Things were catching up with me. I just thought all those years eating things and feeling bloated and just not, didn't want to get out of bed in the mornings because I was tired. Um, so I decided to research other options, because I was sick going to doctor to doctor to doctor. And in this country, if you didn't have decent health insurance, it cost a lot of money. So I went out to California, actually, to a fitness convention, and that's where I found the Gray Institute. I was completely baffled listening to the guy talking about how everything was connected. And I thought, so my shoulder is connected to my hip. So if I have a shoulder problem, it could really be a hip problem. If I have a foot problem, even though the pain's there, it might not be a foot problem. It could be somewhere else in my body. So that was the start of that at 2016. And I started to understand then, after graduating from there, how my body is all connected and how I could heal myself, my body. And I come out of there feeling good. But something was off. Something was still off. So I went to New York to, it was a foot convention with Dr. Emily Spiegel, who founded Nabosa Technology. And there was a guy there, Dr. Perry, and I met him. Dr. Perry had stopped chasing pain. And I went down and introduced myself, and he's a guy that is all about the lymphatic system and all about blood flow. And he says, he came to introduce himself actually because he was having a functional seminar in New York a few weeks later, along with Dr. Stewart Gillespie, from which I never heard tell of. I thought, this might be good. It's cheap. We got a good deal here today, so why don't I go? And I did. I went, and I soon started to discover that there was another way for me maybe to see how I could get rid of the pains I had, the bloatiness, the acne. My skin was literally covered in acne, very sore that I could hardly wash my face. And that was a game changer. That was the game changer. So I started connecting the dots.
Yes.
That every system in your body works together and no system works alone.
Yes. And where did this then, as you started to come to this realization that everything is connected, was there, not only do you have the realization, but you have your own struggles as well. So you have your own struggles, you're starting to get this new information, which is starting to change the information that you used to have in your mind. It's starting to get updated. So where does this start to lead you towards? So you go to the convention, you're starting to hear this new information. So where do we go from here?
Well, from there, at that convention, it was very small. There was like about maybe no more than 30 people there. Everybody had a story. So I came home and we got all the info and I was absorbing it. And I joined the program with Dr. Stewart Gillespie, and we had a one-on-one consult with everybody that went there. You could reach out and tell your story or what was going on with you. Because I was, had so much information in my body, but I didn't know where it was. So Stewart recommended I do a couple of testings, a gut tumor, which I never heard tell of. Your doctor doesn't do that. A gut tumor, a wheat tumor. And these tests came back and showed, that I had such sensitivity to gluten and wheat. Now, I'm not celiac, but huge sensitivity. So then you become a detective in your own body and, okay, where is this inflammation? So then Stewart recommended, to try and get colonoscopy. We had from the testing. So I did the colonoscopy. It was a struggle because I had a colonoscopy when I was 50 and they didn't see anything. So I thought, at that stage, what was I then? Well, I was in my early 50s. So I had the colonoscopy. And I remember the doctor coming out and saying to me, well, what made you push for another colonoscopy when you had one at 50? So I told her my story. And she was very open with it and said, well, I'm glad you did, she says, because we've just removed 11 precancerous polyps here. I said, what? It was crazy. And I got a whole breakdown of everything. And then when we knew where the inflammation was coming from, then I started Stewart's protocol. It was tough. Let me tell you, it wasn't easy. It wasn't easy for someone like me who craved sugar, who craved salt, to do a 360, but I had to. I had no choice. The protocol, when you talk to Stewart, will be, going over immune types. At that time, we talked about a Th1, Th2, but now post-COVID, there's so many more. But I started the protocol and I went 30 days actually on the elimination, which was really taking triggers out and slowly adding foods and certain supplements in. And Stewart's the type where the supplements, where you did a 30-day, you weren't on something forever. You did 30 days and then you come off it to see how your body adjusted. And when I went through everything, Maddie, and then ended up in the ER a few times because there was a lot of fear. I couldn't sleep at night. My mind was all over the place. And I remember going to Dr. Perry then for some lymphatic work that he done with me because I didn't even know anything about the lymphatic system. And I remember him telling me, Ange, you're like the Statue of Liberty. I was so stuck. I was so sympathetic dominant, so stuck in fight and flight, low vagal tone. So then I couldn't mix stomach acid. So it was a lot. It was a lot. I ended up, sleeping on a hammock at night outside, or in my friend's hammock, underneath the roof, so that I could look at the stars and the moon and just sleep without getting into bed and waiting for the palpitations to come and then jumping out of bed. It was a roller coaster, but it changed my life.
Yes, and you know what? In a sense, I can actually relate to this because while I've never actually done any testing on that scale, I always remember, Angela, for so many years, and I'm not saying that oats or oatmeal is an unhealthy food, but for so many years, I used to always eat oats. And it was only relatively recently that I used to have horrendous gastrointestinal reflux. And it was so off-putting because you would be going throughout your day and you had this horrendous burning sensation coming up your esophagus. And it was I couldn't concentrate because you would get wave after wave of this burning acid coming up from your stomach. Now, for so many years, perhaps I was in denial. I used to be trying to do something similar to what you've said, a kind of elimination diet. And I used to always think, oh no, it couldn't be oats. It couldn't be the oats. It couldn't be them. And I had sort of ruled them out as a sort of malevolent force in this particular case. And of course, I'm doing all this experimentation with food. And nothing's working. I still have this raging heartburn. Yep. I sort of sit back someday and go, I wonder, could it be the oats? Surely it isn't. So I thought, I'll run the experiment. I'll do it for a few days. You've even said there, run it for 30 days. I ran it for about a week. And within about 3 days, the heartburn never returned. No more heartburn. And so I ran it for another 4 days, saw out the week, ran it for another week. So at 2 weeks, I have no heartburn. And this is just a sort of miraculous turning around of events. And so I reintroduce oats to essentially run the experiment fairly. And as soon as I reintroduce them, in comes the nasty heartburn once again. So I understand what you're saying about you're going through this process of trying to work out. In your case, you're saying about the skin, lousy sense of well-being. And so you meet Stewart, You get on the protocol. And things then start to clear up. But you're saying about this tremendous stiffness in the body. And so, give us an insight. From this point, where do you start to take your own life's ambition? You start to get into what? Because you've got all this experience, you've got all this feedback. You've essentially been your own lab rat, in a sense. So you've had to do all this experimentation. But with all that comes some very valuable insight and knowledge. So where does this lead you from that point?
Well, from that point then, it was very overwhelming because it was a lot. So I then had to, I had to move. I had to get my body moving. I knew nothing about the vagus nerve. I knew nothing about the lymphatic system. I knew nothing about cranial nerves. There was just so much, but I says, oh my God, it's just, everything's connected. So going back then to my AFS approach, the Applied Functional Science from the Gray Institute, I thought, well, I have to change how I move so that I can open up spaces in my joints for better blood flow, better lymphatic flow. I can't be going to the gym, sitting in a machine, which I was doing. I'm not saying it's wrong, but it's just a very traditional approach where I was trained that muscles, it's just a 1D approach in one plane of motion. And this is what I see with my athletes, especially at home. Here, a wee bit more updated, but we're only moving in one plane of motion. But we have to understand that our body is 3-dimensional. Our body goes forward and back. It goes side to side. We rotate right, we rotate left. Everybody's different. So with applied functional science, it's a thought process where the treatment and the training are easily transferred to the specific function required for your task. So that means whether I'm a golfer, footballer, hurler, dancer. So then you tweak it to your sport so that if I went into the gym and I saw you working out and I saw you doing movements, I would say, I think I know what he's training for. Whereas if I go into the gym and I see somebody with, I'm not saying it's wrong now, but with sitting in a machine, shoulder pressing, or going through leg with squat in one plane of motion, I wouldn't have a clue what he's training for unless I saw the shorts on to say, oh, that's a Gaelic movement or a dancer or whatever. Do you know what I mean? So I says, I have to start moving my body as a unit. It's all connected. So with AFS, to go back to the introduction of it to help people understand before we get into it in our next modules, we create and we manage an environment by using movement drivers, right? To encourage the biomechanical chain reaction that leads to what AFS is: the physical, the biological, and the behavioral. So what is the physical science? That's the environment around us. So we always remember one thing that Dr. Perry had said: you will never heal in the environment that brings you down.
Yes.
So that's the physical science. The biological science is the biomechanics of it all. How it all comes together. Not in parts, but in 3 planes of motion.
Yes.
And then you have the behavioral science. What helps us drive our clients, create an environment for them that is encouraging, enhancing, and helps them and makes them feel good. Yeah. So that's really what AFS is. And then, of course, we start to divide those groups up and educate our kids on what the sciences are, explaining those a little bit more. In the physical science, like what is it? It's a 3D environment. Everything. gravity, ground reaction forces, mass and momentum, in 3 planes of motion.
Yes.
And we can't deny that when we look at, well, for the people I work with, and I've taken on a lot of adults now doing the programs that I did with Stewart, but for my younger athletes, the future is to try and not motivate them, but is to try and help them in this day and age to change their habits. So that when you go back to that environment of dance or Gaelic, that, yeah, I do dance. I go forward on the stage. I make a lot of turns. I jump high. I move to the side. Yeah, my body's moving in 3 planes of motion. Now, dancers are very, good at knowing their choreography, but not so good at knowing what it takes to get there. Joints, muscles, tendons, ligaments, right? Same thing in the football field. You're moving in 50,000 different directions.
That's correct.
Forward, back, stop, turn. And then we wonder why we have so many injuries. I mean, everything starts with the feet. When the foot hits the ground, there's going to be a chain reaction. What happened when that foot hit the ground? What happened to the rest of the chain? So that's like the physical science of it.
And from your perspective then, Angela, because we are going to get into this a lot. We're going to get into this in detail. This is sort of just a little introduction so that people can get a gauge of, first of all, who is Angela Mohan? And then secondly, to just get a brief overview of what these terms that we are hearing, applied functional science, 3-dimensional movement, just to get a little summary, a quick overview. Now, we are going to get into this in more detail, of course, but just to give our audience a summarized idea, why is it so beneficial to see the world, especially as an athlete or even just a normal person who wants to enhance their own functionality? Why is it so beneficial to look through the lens of 3D movement, 3-dimensional movement, instead of 1-dimensional movement? What is so beneficial through looking through the lens, let's say, of 3D movement?
Because that's how the human body works. One of the main truths and principles behind human movement is the universal law of 3D. At any time, we're moving. Joints, muscles, tendons, ligaments. We're going through a 3D motion to make up the big picture movement we see. When we walk forward, it's more like you have 3 planes. So you have your sagittal plane, that's forward and back. You have your frontal plane, side to side. Excuse me. You have your transverse plane, the power plane, twisting or rotating right and left. But I think, back in the day, when we walk, that's like going forward. So that's like you see that as a sagittal plane movement. But there is, knowing our greater knowledge of education now, there is another 2 planes there where something's happening in the frontal plane and the transverse plane. So one, I'm stepping forward in the sagittal plane, but something else is happening in another plane to generate that movement. Because at each joint, there's going to be 3 things that need to happen. And that's what we are going to get into when I take you through the 3D maps. The traditional approach has always been in 1D. It's been like that. Now, Gary Gray's talked about it from 1970 as a physical therapist, understanding. I think back in the day, there was this thing about we only have so much degree of motion in our lumbar spine, so it might not be a good idea to rotate a lot. And, over the years in schools and stuff, the books were never changed. A lot of books were never updated, shall we say. Do you know what I mean? But it's quite big here in America now, and in this world of professional sports here, they certainly move in all three planes of motion. And it's just catching up with it. It's just, I think people, my generation of people, at my age now, I'm 65, I probably might never have changed if I hadn't been feeling healthy, if I hadn't have been in pain. I need to change something. I don't want to be in a wheelchair when I'm 70. Do you know what I mean? So that's what took me to the Gray Institute. Like when you look at the behavioral science of it, every human, I want to be successful. I always remember a coach saying to me, God, Angela, if you're a great camogie player, it's a pity you just were not a wee bit fitter. Now, I thought about that when I came home. And I thought to myself, I'm doing everything. I'm running around that field like a dizzy. It's not working. So maybe my coach doesn't fully understand what's going on, because for me, I was a big chest breather. This takes me then, which is another topic, where I studied under Patrick McKeown at the Oxygen Advantage program and became, that was my last certification, an Oxygen Advantage Master Instructor, because I wanted to know why. That was in my head forever. A fitter? I'm doing everything. I'm going to the gym. I'm going to training 3 days a week, but I'm exhausted. So what's missing? Well, there's a lot missing, right? Number one, the oatmeal had to go. Porridge had to go.
That makes two of us, Angela. That makes two of us.
Now, I'm not saying porridge is, I mean, everybody eats it at home, but
yes,
at least if you like porridge, and when I go home, I find small farms where nothing sprayed with glyphosate, small, just the way I eat now, organic, and off the street from my farmer, and no processed foods and stuff like that. And that all was part of, because what is fitness? Define fitness. How can you have good stamina when you're not getting enough oxygen? And that took me down the path of breathing. And I was a little hurt by that in the behavioral science, because everybody wants to be loved, wants to be encouraged. But all he could say to me was, God, it's just a pity you weren't a little bit fitter. And I said, well, can you help me?
Okay.
But he couldn't.
Okay.
So for me, what am I doing? How can I help my client when they say, Angela, I'm exhausted. I can't breathe. I can't get through a full class. I can't get through a full match. I had to be taken off because I'm not fit. But I'm going, training like a madman. I'm doing it all. But what's wrong? And that's, for me, I want to be able to look then at my client's immune type, or Stuart will talk to you about, because if I'm a Th2 and I'm an athlete that was born with asthma, allergies, that's different from an immune type with somebody that doesn't have allergies, who's all like, go, 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 like me, until I broke down my body. Breaking down my tissues, couldn't put muscle mass on.
Yes.
It was quite a roller coaster. So now, for me, doing this, I can at least help my client, no matter what. And sometimes we have to sit back and look at the athlete and say, stop, we need to work from the inside out.
Yes. And I think this is actually an interesting thing as well, Angela. You've mentioned throughout this entire episode about a certain Dr. Stewart Gillespie. Now, the Bandido had the great pleasure of meeting both yourself and Dr. Stewart Gillespie earlier this year. I think it was around June, July. So Stuart
Yeah.
was over in Ireland, you were over in Ireland, and we got to meet up. We got to have a chat in person. We've stayed in contact ever since. And I'd just like you to, again, this is an introduction, so we're not going to dive into tremendous detail on all of these things right now. It's just an overview, but just give our audience a little idea of how both you and Dr. Stewart Gillespie, how you both work with this lovely synergy. How is it that both of you have this synergy or complementary approach? Because you both fit hand in glove. So how does Stewart come into this equation? And give us a little bit of a breakdown, a little summary of how it is that you and Stewart have been working together and your two approaches have blended together to get the best results for the people that you're actually dealing with.
Yeah, because it takes a village. It takes a village, no matter what. It was all like Stuart's understanding this and understanding the one thing that Stuart had said to us is, his when we joined his mentorship was that you don't have to be a doctor to know this. Okay, that's good. Okay. 2019 was the first functional workshop, and honestly, it was double Dutch to me. It really was. So when I joined the mentorship, it's online, a private program online. And you had the videos, and Stuart came on every week and doing the Q&As. And we have those videos for life. So I started to understand with my athletes, and I have a couple now that I had a kid going to the Worlds with a blood clot. Was I worried? I sent her to her doctor, of course, went to her doctor, got everything done, seen where the blood clot was. But with Stuart's help and understanding her immune type and putting her on a more natural supplement for this kid rather than taking Eliquis, where she wouldn't have any side effects and tired, and that she could come and compete. I never thought I'd see the day that it would, or a kid 2 weeks ago that had rolled their ankle and come to me in a boot and said, Ange, I need to do the Oireachtas. So, well, go to your doctor, get your x-ray, see what the results are, and come back to me and we'll have a look at it. Of course, from a traditional point, the osteopath that he went to put him in a boot and says, just, the traditional approach was just rest. Don't do anything, just rest. And the boot was all the way up his knee. And I thought, well, I looked at the report. I really didn't see anything that was totally fractured or anything. So understanding the Gray Institute approach, and then understanding from Stuart's point of view, knowing that this kid was a Th2. This kid, when he was born, and that's the thing with combining with Stuart, we go back to your childhood. He has a form and you go back to your childhood. Everything begins in your childhood. So the first thing that popped up was this kid had an allergy to penicillin. So what's penicillin? Mold. Puffy. I noticed the kid was very puffy. That's allergies, asthma. So I knew what I needed to do with that kid from Stuart's point of view and from understanding the Th2, what I needed to drive. And then from a Gray Institute point of view, from three-dimensional movement, and use some rock tape for stability to protect him. And with the behavioral science, get inside his head that he can do it. And he did. And he qualified for the Worlds. So working along with Stuart and understanding people's immune types rather than thinking everybody's the same when they're not, and post-COVID, there's more, histamine responses with kids, which is a different immune type. Hypermobility is different from a dancer. A dancer that's hypermobile can lift their leg and wrap it around their head, but a very unsafe brain, because the brain doesn't feel safe. I mean, everything's brain-driven, compared to the dancer who's very sticky, who can't sit in a squat, who struggles, and who's told, go stretch, stretch, stretch. Well, unfortunately, you can't stretch something that's tight. Taking in another system, we use the big six from, which I'm excited to talk to you about as we move along, where I help the kid create blood flow and lymphatic flow in joints in the order that the lymphatic system drains. So basically, you're putting it all together and you're looking at that person. What can I do for that individual, mind, body, and spirit? I can give her an exercise and say, away you go. But if the brain doesn't feel safe and they still feel, I've got a blood clot, I rolled my ankle, there's fear. And those are the sciences of the Gray Institute, you know, the physical and the behavioral science in particular, which I was never taught. I didn't know there was such a thing. You know, we all went out like Brown's cows and do 10 laps around the field. You put up a cone, run to that cone, come back to this cone. But that's not authentic to what I'm going to do in the day of competition, because there's not going to be in the day I'm playing a match.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So working with Stewart and always learning, and there's so much more. I mean, I'm part of his program for life. I'm part of Dr. Perry's program for life. I'm part of the Gray Institute for life. And in this era, like helping kids, it's very hard. Like, it's very hard because you want to then be able to engage with their teachers so that we both can get on the same path, or at least, you know, be open to open the door. Make the box a little bit bigger, shall we say.
Yes. Yes, and I love this because it makes the whole analysis, because at the end of the day, Angela, when you have someone in front of you, you want to be able to help them as much as possible. That makes sense.
Yeah.
So you're able to bring all of this expertise with respect to three-dimensional movement and everything that you've learned at the Gray Institute, everything that we've covered so far in this episode. And then, through your collaboration with Stewart, he then comes in with the immune types. But they are, in a sense, they are so complementary. If you understand the immune type of your client, let's say, that's going to help you tailor your own instructions and feedback somewhat more. And likewise for Stewart, if Stewart finds out something physically with that person through your own cross-examination of them physically, that's very useful for him as well. So you can really see how this is mutually beneficial and how much better it is for the actual person on the other end. Because they get to benefit from not only your expertise, but also Stewart's. And when you put it all together, we've now got a package that is somewhat more complete. So it's really, really good. I love that. And, you know, I think just to draw our little introductory episode to a close, the first thing I want to say is, if Angela Mohan could let us know how people who are watching and listening can actually find you.
You can find me on Instagram at Angel_Mohan, and also on Facebook on my business page, Angel_Mohan. You could also send me a message through my Facebook page. And what we do then is, you know, I always thought at 65, right, I love golf. I want to just go and play golf. Right? So I never really got into saying, I want to go deep with this, setting up a website and all that at this stage of my life. But I feel with where I am and what I do, with having the Gray Institute, having Stewart, Dr. Perry at Stop Chasing Pain, when it comes to blood flow and lymphatic, because that's how we stretch, helping what I'm actually doing now with, and then the Oxygen Advantage program, and knowing that everything's brain driven, I started doing some work with Dr. Cobb at Z Health, which the kids find fascinating, on how our up ear, our eyes, our tongue can drive our movement, can relax the nervous system by just working the eyes. How powerful the eyes are. The eyes are part of the posterior chain, and we'll get into that when we do our 3D maps breaking down the role of the Grey Institute. So that's how you can find me. Ask me questions. I'm coming home now on the 21st. I have clients at home. You can reach out to me. And I truly am blessed and honoured to have met you, Maddie, and for you to be open. I love what you do. You just shoot from the hip. And I truly appreciate you having me on here and helping me share this knowledge, and just hope that one or two people can just say, that's me, and I would like to try something different.
Oh, yes. No, absolutely. I think at the end of the day, Angela, you are doing the Bandido a favour because, you know, what is the whole point of the show? It's to try and get people on who have expertise in areas where the Bandido does not have a lot of knowledge on. So I think that's the thing. Hopefully the audience, whenever we have you on, and we'll have you on over and over, because as we've already said, there are so many ways in which we could take this particular discussion. And also as well, on the video, I will have all of those links around the video, and I will also have them pinned down in the description, down in the comment section as well, so people will be able to effortlessly find Angela Mohan. So that's great. No, that's terrific. And I suppose just to draw a close to our episode, is there anything else you would like to add, Angela, just before we wrap things up?
Well, I think from applied functional science, from the Grey Institute, where it really all started, your body, right? Muscles have to get turned on. They get turned on via lengthening. They get turned on by proprioceptors, which is the nerves. They provide a communication network that transforms the electrical impulses into information used to initiate the movement. Then you have the muscles, along with the connective tissue, the fascia, all that fascia that holds us all together, which people don't talk much about. And this is why I see a lot of athletes getting stuck, because they repeat the same thing over and over and over in one plane of motion. But the muscles require us to work in 3 planes of motion for a healthy, pain-free body. And then you have the bones. Our bones move, our nerves sense the motion, and our muscles control and create new motion.
Yes.
There you go.
Beautiful. Now, I think that's been a really good introduction. It's been a really good introduction just for everyone to get to know, first and foremost, who you are, Angela. A little bit about your own story, and we're going to discover more about your own personal story as well as we go through all of this little series, we can say, of episodes. And also, not only to get an introduction to yourself, but also to the work that you're doing in this 3-dimensional movement space, and also some of your collaborations. So we've talked about how you've collaborated with Dr. Stewart Gillespie, Dr. Perry, and some of these other people. We're going to get into all of this because these are episodes in their own right. They are episodes in their own right, and these names, the Bandido Talks audience is going to have to get used to these names because they are going to come up over and over again. So, that is terrific. A really good, comprehensive introduction. And I'm very much looking forward to getting into more detail, because we've done an overview today, which is necessary, really good. But then we are going to get deep down into the nuances of all of these different aspects of what it is that you do. So I'm really looking forward to that. And again, I want to thank you very much, Angela, for giving us your time, your attention, and your expertise. We very much appreciate it. And we will, of course, be in touch. You're going to be back over in Ireland very soon. Do you want to just give us a little heads up, Angela? What have you got on the horizon? Who are you working with at the moment, if you want to say that? What are some of the projects that you have in the pipeline?
Well, a few things. I have some GAA players that I introduced on Zooms, what applied functional science is, what 3D is, and the importance of moving their body on the pitch in 3D. I got a couple of teachers from some dance schools that reached out curious as to what I do. So I'm going to kind of meet up with them. And then we had a group when Stuart was over last year that we did a little workshop with. Now, some of them completed our protocols, some of them didn't, simply because people just get stuck. It's not their fault. But I'm going to catch up with them and see where they are. Move those that have completed maybe the first protocol, whether it was a mold protocol, parasite, or just their microbiome, and take them to the next phase. And maybe try to encourage those that didn't make the move, see how they are, see if they're interested in moving forward, and go from there.
Perfect. Love it. Really good. I love your energy. I love your passion. I'm looking forward to getting chatting with you in the incoming weeks when you come back over to Ireland again. And yes, I'm really looking forward to getting into all of these different aspects of what it is that you do. I really want to thank you again, Angela. We really appreciate it here on Bandido Talks. And all being well, I'm going to get chatting with you very soon.
Thank you very much.
Perfect. Pleasure as always, Angela. All the best. Get chatting to you soon.
Cheers for now.